Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Patrick Gonzalez. I am from the Philippines and I will be your host for this monthly IDP-IELTS writing workshop with our returning IELTS expert, Jacqueline Fisher, and with my co-hosts from the following countries. So we have first, kindly introduce yourself even on your dialect or your language of your respective countries. So we have Sheni from Malaysia. Ms. Shadi, can you say something or any words of wisdom to our IELTS test takers for attending this session?
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead. And can we say something to our IELTS test takers? Any words of wisdom?
They can ask any questions they want. We'll be able to assist them through the chat.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have from Indonesia, Atia. Can you say something to our IELTS test takers for today?
Hello and welcome to the webinar. I wish that you learn something for your future test and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you. Next, we have from the Philippines, Albert. Can you say something to our Filipino test takers?
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Albert from the Philippines. So enjoy our webinar and I hope you learn a lot from this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Wai from Myanmar. Can you say something to our from Myanmar who will be taking the IELTS test?
Hello, I'm Wei. I'm from Myanmar and enjoy the webinar, and we hope you have learned a lot for your IELTS test and you achieve your desired band scores. We wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Later part of today's session, we'll be having a live Q&A session with our IELTS expert. So get ready your questions and we will answer them one by one. For those who are first-time joiners, let me give you some quick information about our IELTS expert. Jacqueline Fisher has been an IELTS teacher and trainer for more than a decade. Armed with an in-depth understanding of IELTS, she has helped hundreds of people from across Asia to prepare well for it. Today, Jacqueline will be walking you through IELTS writing for academic and general training. So keep your ears and open for some amazing tips. Without further ado, let us pass over to Jacqueline. Welcome back, Miss Jackie.
Thank you, Patrick, for that very nice introduction. Always make me feel shy. Okay, hi everybody. It's really nice to be with you this evening or whatever time it is, wherever you are. So I'm joining you this evening from Singapore. I'm wondering, I know it looks like Australia behind me. That's just because I'm a bit homesick. Yeah, so I put that background up there. Can I just find out where you're from? I'm going to ask you a lot of questions using the chat. I find the best way for us to communicate. So do you want to let me know where you're from in the chat? I'm curious to find out. This is a regional webinar, so we could be from many different places. I see Jakarta, Philippines, Indonesia, someone from Singapore. Well, yeah, I don't know where you are in Singapore, but where I am, it's pouring with rain right now. I don't know how the weather is in your part of the world. Cambodia, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand. It's so great to have people here from across the region. And I do hope you're keeping well and safe. Yeah, so it's very nice to be with you. Someone from India, how lovely. Okay, so tonight, as Patrick said, we're going to dive into the writing test. Yeah, so that's often the test that most people are worried about. And I'm going to try to give you lots of tips and ideas and suggestions about, what you do, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and so that you understand it a little bit more. So, and someone in Australia, I'm very jealous, Ernest. I was there a few months ago, but I'm missing my family there. I'm sure a lot of people aren't in their home at the moment, and I really feel for you. Yep, so let's get into this writing webinar. So So yeah, so we will have, as Patrick said, if you want to ask questions in the chat, please feel free. It's your webinar. So any questions you have, please ask. We have a lot of people here today, so I apologize if I miss some of your questions. My wonderful colleagues are very well equipped to answer your questions too, so they'll catch the ones that I miss. You can put questions in the Q&A box too, but I won't be able to see them so easily. And then, as Patrick mentioned, at the end, we will do some live question and answer, which is always fun. Get to hear your voices. All right, so today we are exploring the writing test. Now, I was wondering if we could just start with the first poll. We're going to have some polls just so I can find out about you, or we can do a bit of revision. Yeah, so here's the first poll, just to find out a bit about you and your IELTS experience, whether you've taken the test before, the minimum that you need. Of course, we all want the highest possible, but what's the minimum that you need? And then which test you're planning to take. So yeah, that'll be great. Will this be recorded? I think this may be recorded. I'm not sure if it's being recorded yet. Yeah, I'm not sure, Tarisha. Okay, we've got a question about ideal word counts. I've seen that. We'll talk about that. Oh, we've got someone from Ireland. That's a long way. It's in the morning there, I think, for you. Okay, so let's see. I might just let this run a little bit longer, and then yeah, maybe one of my colleagues can answer about whether this is being recorded. I'm not exactly sure about that. Okay, I think I'll just end the poll. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's 10:30 in the morning in Ireland. Gosh, and I'm sure it's very chilly compared to the tropics where most of us are over here in Southeast Asia. Okay, so let's see. Most of you have not taken the test before. Okay, great. Now, even if you have, maybe you have a specific question, then that's totally fine to answer. And I won't assume that you know anything, so it's for everybody. Now, let's see. The band scores, yeah, so most of you need between 6 and 7, 7 to 8. That's good. That's not such a high score. There are a few of you who need a really high score. So IELTS perfect score is a 9. Yeah, so it's unusual that people actually need a 9, but of course, maybe you want a 9, which I understand. And then I see a lot more people are doing academic. That's great. So many of you want to study. That's very exciting. But don't worry for general people. We're going to talk about both the general and the academic tests. So we will cover both. Yes, so let's get into it. Thank you for sharing that with me. I also was wondering though, if any of you have actually booked your test. If you've got a test date, do you mind putting that in the chat as well? Yeah, if you've got a test date, if you've already booked. Yeah, I see 11th of February, March. 11th of February, that's very soon. February 12th, that's also very soon. Okay, 19th, May, okay. All right, so depending on what band score you need, of course, the longer you have to prepare, the better. But if your test is in a couple of days, I hope I can give you lots of tips that will help you. All right, so let's think about the writing. Now, the writing test, the reason why we have this one whole workshop on the writing test is it's usually the one that most people are worried about, the most worried about. Now, can you just tell me how many things you need to do in this writing test and how long it is? Whether you're doing academic or general, it's the same length. Yeah, there are 2 tasks and the whole test is 1 hour. You are right. Okay, so if you're doing academic, so 2 tasks. So your first task is you have to describe something using words. Second task, you need to write an essay. And then if you're doing general, so your second task again is an essay, and your first task is a bit different. You're writing a letter. Yeah, general is a little bit easier to do than the academic. Yeah, because your purpose is different, right? You're doing this for work or for going to live in a different country. Yeah. And now you'll find out that I'm really quite curious. I'm also curious if you are doing the test to go to another country, where are you going? I'd love to know. Do you want to put that in the chat? Someone's going to Estonia, Italy. Wow, that's very exotic. UK, Australia, Singapore. Oh, Canada. England, I see lots of huge range. Germany, wow, Netherlands, wow, you're truly international. That's very exciting. Thanks for sharing that with me. Yes, now another question. Are you planning to take your IELTS on the computer or paper-based? If you don't know yet, don't worry, but if you know, maybe you can let me know. Oh, I see quite a lot of computers, a few paper-based pop in here and there. Now, it's the same test. The content is exactly the same. It's just that the way you do it is obviously different. So if you're doing it on computer, that means your listening, reading, and your writing are all done on the computer. And then paper-based is like old school way with pen, with pencil, and writing on paper. Okay, so people always ask me which one's better, which one's easier, and that's really depends on you and your skills and your comfort level. So a lot of younger people much prefer the computer delivered because they're just very comfortable working with the keyboard, working with the mouse, reading on the screen. But if you're like maybe my generation, like we might prefer paper, where, I mean, the writing is a bit tricky because you do have to write longhand. Many of us aren't used to that. So really you just weigh it up which suits your skills so it's not more stressful. If you're not comfortable on a computer, I would not do it on computer if you don't have to. Okay, so the other difference is with computer delivered, you get your results faster, 3 to 5 days, and usually you can do it more often. And I think some countries, because of COVID, some countries are still not really offering paper-based that much. Yeah, so, okay, great. So now I know a bit more about you. Now we're going to be thinking all about the writing in this session. So let's think now about what the examiners look at when they read your writing. They only care about 4 things. Yeah, so they don't care actually about your penmanship, like how neat your writing is, as long as they can read it. That's not one of the 4 things. So what are the 4 things that you have to, that the examiners look at when they read your writing? It's really important that you know these, because when we write, we have to keep thinking about these. Does anyone know what any of them are? Yeah, task response is one. That's right. Yep. Did you answer the question? Very important. The grammar, yes, they're looking at your grammar. That matters. Your lexical resource, that's right. Your vocabulary, the actual words you're using. And cohesion and coherence, the structure. So let's talk about each of those. I'll just put them up first and we can have a talk about them. So they're all worth an equal amount. So they're all equally important. Yeah, so we have to keep thinking of these 4 as we write. So the first one is task achievement or task response. So that means basically, did you answer the question? Did you follow the instructions? Really, my biggest tip for the whole of IELTS, every IELTS test, is follow the instructions. It's very important in IELTS. Yeah, a lot of people kind of do their own thing. It doesn't serve you well in IELTS. You need to follow the instructions. And so with task achievement, task response, did you follow the instructions? Did you answer fully and well? Yeah. Okay, so that's the first one. Second one, cohesion and coherence. What's that about? Does anyone know? What's that referring to? I already mentioned structure. Yeah, it's having a nice, clear structure. And so a lot of that, when it comes to writing, is it's very simple, having paragraphs. You must have nice, clear paragraphs, and it must be clear what each paragraph is about. Yeah, so that's a very easy thing to do to get the points. And then another thing you need to think about is how it flows, the linking words. Yeah, how all the words and paragraphs flow, how they're understandable and clear. Yeah, so to make it flow, in IELTS, it's good to use linking words, yeah, to guide the reader through your writing. Yep, so that's the next one, cohesion and coherence. Okay, now we come to lexical resource, and that's your vocab. So a few things to think about. So if you're wanting 7 or more, you need to use some more unusual words. Yeah, not just like the sort of very basic words like interesting, nice, good. I mean, they're okay, but they're not really sort of up to a 7. Yeah, so unusual words, but they also have to be correct. So it's a balance of using more unusual vocabulary, but it has to be appropriate and correct. Yeah, and also for the writing, it's getting the right tone with the words. So we don't want to use like words that are too casual in the essay. Also coming under your vocab is spelling. I don't know about you, but many of us don't have such good spelling anymore because of all the texting, but there's no spell check even on the computer delivered. So we have to think about spelling. Yeah. And then the last one is your grammar. Yeah, and you'll see here that grammar has two parts to it, doesn't it? So it's accuracy. So of course, if you want a 7, probably about 70-75% correct with the grammar. But then it's not just accuracy. If you want 8, then probably 80-85%. But it's not just about being correct. So, usually I give this example. So if I say this, or if I write this sentence, I like Singapore, it is wet, which is very true this evening. Those two sentences were correct. They were grammatically correct, but they were very simple, weren't they? So if I can make them more complex, it shows that I have more range. And it's not that hard to be complex. If you can make a sentence like this, although I like living in Singapore very much, it does tend to be rather wet. Yeah, that already is a much more complex sentence with two parts joined with although. Yeah, so if you can have a subordinate clause, we call it, then that's considered complex. Yeah, so try to do more of that. Although, however, whereas, while, if, all of those make it more complex. Yeah, so they're the 4 things. Yeah, so if someone's saying about spelling, yeah, spelling is something that we just have to work on, like we call it drilling. There aren't really shortcuts so much with spelling, although English does have some rules, but it's good to get some apps. If your spelling is kind of bad, if you look on the App Store or Google Play and for IELTS, or not even IELTS, just like maybe upper intermediate spelling games, something like that, and then you can actually play games and practice your spelling, and that's more fun. Yeah. Okay, so why am I going on about these things so much? Because this is what the examiner looks at. This is how they mark you. So they mark each of these 4 out of 9. So to get, just say you want 7, you need to get 7 for answering the question, 7 for the structure and the flow, 7 for the vocab, 7 for your grammar. Yeah, so, and 7 means good. So they all have to be 7. So it's kind of a numbers game. So if you were to get 7, 7, 7, and then 6 for the grammar, because you had a few too many grammar mistakes, then you would get 6.5. So it's very important to work out where you are, what your strengths are, what you need to improve on. I also wanted to mention, I forgot, under the grammar, the examiner also looks at your punctuation. So full stops, capital letters, commas, question marks, if you use them, all of those things come under grammar. Okay, so missing articles, you're right, and the. If too many of those, it will pull your score down. But it's a balance between how complex your sentences are as well. It's always a balance between correct and complex. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to keep thinking about these 4 things because that's what the examiners are looking at. Okay, so let's get into task 1 general. Now, I know many of you are academic, so don't worry, we're going to cover task 1 academic a lot, but for task 1 general, we'll talk about yours first. So if you're doing academic and you want to go get a drink and have a snack and come back, feel free, probably about 15 minutes. I'll be talking about general, but of course you're welcome to stay also, up to you, or you can read your email or whatever. All right, so general people, can you remind me what we're doing for our task 1? Remember, in writing, we have to do 2 things. So this is the first thing. It's a letter, that's right. How many words and how long? How many words? 150 words minimum. So someone was asking how many is best. There's no maximum, but you have to manage your time, which is only 20 minutes. So you don't want to write 1,000 words. Yeah, so I mean, if you can write 170 or 180 words, that's probably good. It might give you like a fuller kind of a letter, but your minimum is 150. All right, so this is what it looks like when you get your letter. Yeah, this part's semi-formal, that's not there, but it looks like this. All right, so I'm going to kind of guide you through it. So it always tells you how to start. Please just follow that and don't change it. So it said, dear sir or madam, so that's how you will begin. It tells you how long and how many words. Okay, then the topic is broken into 3 parts. So there's the description, what you're writing about. There have been some problems with public transport in your area. I'm sorry, like sort of like the background to what you're going to write about. Then there's what you have to do, your task. So write a letter to the manager of public transport company. And then here are the subtasks. How many are there? There are always 3. I see a question about semi-formal and formal. I'll get to that in a minute. Great question. Okay, question about US or UK spelling. It doesn't matter. Remember, it's international IELTS. Ideally, try not to mix them too much in one letter. Pick one. But, you know, in Australia, we do a bit of a mix of UK and US English. So as long as it's correct, you can use either one. Okay, so three subtasks. All right, so it always looks like this. Now, when you write the letter, you have 3 jobs. Okay, so let's talk through these jobs. Every letter is the same. Remember, you only have 20 minutes, so we want to be kind of fast. But it's good to spend a minute going through these 3 jobs. First job, who are you writing to and how are you starting? So it told us how to start, dear sir or madam, and it said manager of public transport company. So what is our tone going to be? So I'm telling you should be semi-formal. You might want to say formal. Formal is okay. The reason I put semi-formal is it's got to sound modern and professional. You don't want to sound old-fashioned, like my esteemed sir, I beseech you, down on bended knee for your, I'm your grateful subject, or something like that. You don't want it to be like that. That's what I mean. Don't be too formal and old-fashioned. That's why I put semi-formal. Think about if you're writing an email to someone you don't know. I know this is a letter, but think about the tone for an email at work to someone you don't know. That kind of tone, professional. Okay, so yeah, and remember, if you're going to a Western country, generally people are not as formal as they are in Asia. Yeah, so I'm not telling you to be casual, just be professional. Yeah, okay, so that's our first job. Work out our tone, which we get from how we start and who we're writing to. Next job is we have to work out why we are writing our purpose. The purpose is always at the top here. There have been some problems with public transport. Usually we can say the purpose with to. Why are we writing? To do what? It's the overall purpose. So we're writing to share about some problems with public transport. That's our overall purpose, isn't it? Yeah. So next job, that's our second job, work out the purpose. Our third job is to look carefully at the bullet points to make sure that we understand what we have to do. So describe the problems. See this S? Can I just talk about one problem? No, must have more than one problem. So we must have at least 2 problems that we talk about. Explain how the problems are affecting the public. That's our second job. Suggest what changes, more than one change, could be made. So this is where you have to use your imagination a little bit to think up what the problems might be. Please make them real. Don't say something like, oh, there are like little pixies on the bus and they're disturbing me. Something like, don't do that. Just make it real. You get more points in IELTS when you're real. Okay, so always remember with the letter, there's these 3 rules. Your purpose, the 3 bullet points, make sure you cover them fully and keep the tone correct. Okay, so let's look at a model. When we're learning to do writing in IELTS, it's really good to look at models So we see what they want you to do, and we kind of learn the style and the language. Okay, so we were told to start dear sir or madam. There we go. First paragraph should have the purpose. Can you see the purpose? Yeah, where's the purpose? Yeah, I am writing. So it's usually said with a to. I'm writing to draw your attention. So that's nice language as well. Remember, always trying to think of a bit more unusual vocabulary. Draw your attention to recent problems with public transport. Now notice the very start. The person said, I am a resident. So this is a good way to start. Say who you are, give a bit of background, but not your name. You don't need to put your name. You just say who you are. That puts the context. And then you say the purpose. So that's nice for your first paragraph. Okay, next we talk about the first bullet point. So remember, we have to use linking words. It's always good to use linking words in our writing. Can you spot two in this next paragraph? There are two linking words to introduce. Remember, we have to have more than one problem. So briefly is the first one. Roadworks have led to long delays. So that's one problem. And furthermore, new weekend bus table has dramatically reduced frequency. Notice the nice language under the vocabulary, dramatically reduced. It's better than saying reduced, right? It's more impressive. So that's our first bullet point. Second one is the effect. Can you notice this topic sentence saying what the paragraph is about before we write it? So the effect of the actions becomes very obvious during peak hours and the busy shopping hours. Yeah, the high level of public concern. Public transport find it takes 20 minutes, so that's one effect, to travel the length of the road as well. Linking word. Shoppers who travel by bus find it's not worth the trouble, leading to a drastic downturn. So there are two effects. Yeah, can you spot any nice vocabulary, more unusual vocabulary? Because remember, we're trying to impress the examiner with our natural. We would really use it. Yeah, drastic downturn, very nice. Retail trade is also quite nice, not worth the trouble. So there's a question about semi-formal. Okay, you don't have to get too nitpicky. Dear sir or madam, yes, it does mean more formal, right? But I'm saying that what you shouldn't be when it's dear sir or madam, you shouldn't be old-fashioned. Notice how the way this letter is written, it is quite formal, but it's also natural and sounds modern and contemporary. It's not using very old-fashioned language. If you do that, you will lose marks. That's why I'm saying semi-formal. Yeah, maybe I should change it to old-fashioned. Don't be old-fashioned. Okay? Okay, good. So last bullet point, the suggestions. May I suggest that buses be rerouted? So that's one suggestion. And here's a linker for the second suggestion. I would also recommend a return to the old weekend bus timetable. Now, this paragraph here, the last paragraph, we are pointing to the next step. I look forward to hearing from you regarding my suggestions. Don't forget the sign off because it's a letter. Dear sir or madam, the matching sign off is yours faithfully. And then your name, don't forget your name because it's a letter. So usually a letter has 5 paragraphs like that. So you'll have your purpose, you'll have a paragraph for each bullet point, you'll have the pointing to the next step, and then the sign off. So that's really it with the letter. It's not horribly hard. Yeah, for general, it's really, really doable. Now, it is very important that you look at those bullet points carefully. If you forgot to talk about the suggestions, you would get band 4 under your task achievement. So you don't want that. So look at the bullet points carefully. Then keeping the tone the same. So notice how this is professional, semi-formal. I mean, you could almost say formal, but it's not old-fashioned. It's still quite modern. Okay, if your tone is variable, like dear sir or madam, hey dude, how you going? There's this kind of weird tone, it will affect your score and you'll get a band 5. Okay, so you've got to keep the correct tone. Depending on who you're writing to, you're not always writing to someone you don't know. So you've got to really be careful with your tone. All right, so yes, so keep these in mind, looking for the purpose and who you're writing to, fixing your tone, covering all the bullet points, and usually 5 paragraphs. Okay, so let's just practice looking for the purpose. Sometimes it's a bit hard. It's always at the top in the description. So what's the purpose here? Usually we can articulate it with a to. You want your friend to come to your partner's surprise birthday party. What's our purpose? Quite an easy purpose. You want to type in the chat? What's our purpose for writing this letter? To do what? To invite someone to somewhere. That's right, to invite someone. It's really good, though, to practice at being able to articulate the purpose, because you need to put that in your first paragraph. You recently stayed in a hotel and the service was most unsatisfactory. Complain. Yeah, it could be complain. It could be express disappointment. Yeah, give some feedback. Exactly. So let's improve the tone. Now, the tone, you have to be a bit careful. So have a look at this tone. This is for the invitation to the friend's partner's surprise party. What do you feel about this tone? Dear Anne, I request the pleasure of your attendance at the birthday party that I will host my longtime partner. I would very much appreciate it if you could keep this invitation a secret. Yes, Rafat, it's too formal for a friend, especially a Western friend. Yeah, and have a look at this version and feel the difference. Dear Anne, I hope all is well. I'm not sure if you remember, but Danny's big birthday is around the corner. Yes, he's going to hit the big 40. He says he doesn't want a party, but that's too bad because I'm hoping you'll be part of a super secret surprise bash I'm organizing for him. Can you feel the difference? This tone in the second one, when you're writing to a friend, it sounds like you're talking. That's what it should sound like, but we use full sentences and proper punctuation. In an informal letter like this one, it's fine to use contractions. I'm, he's, doesn't, all fine. But you must use full sentences. And I know it's a bit weird because we wouldn't write a letter, would we? We'd just send a WhatsApp. But, okay, so be careful with slang. Slang depends on what you mean by slang. Something like LOL, no. It has to be proper English words. But idioms are fine in an informal letter, like super secret surprise bash. That's another word for party. Yeah, but not texting language too much, and not like really slang that's like only people under 20 would know. All right, so how about this tone? This was for the other one that you were expressing your disappointment about the hotel. What's wrong? What's funny about this tone? I'm very sorry about this, but I really do have to complain about the service I received at your hotel. What's strange about that? Casual? Yeah, it's too apologetic, I feel also. You're complaining about bad service. You don't have to say sorry. Something more detached and a bit more formal would be better. I'm writing to express my disappointment about the service. Can you see how this is quite cool and detached and much more appropriate tone? All right, so next thing we always have to think about are our bullets. So always 3 bullet points. Now we have to make sure we look at them carefully. So here's another example. You think you left your briefcase on the train. Write a letter to the lost property office in the letter. Describe what the briefcase looked like and what was in it. So be careful. Sometimes there's an and. So you have to do both parts of both sides of the and. What the briefcase looked like and what was in it. That's the first thing. Explain where you think you left it, and what you want the lost property office to do. So 3 things. What it looked like, what was in it, where you left it, what you want the lost property office to do. Now have a look at this. What you should really try to do is write pretty much an equal amount for each bullet point. I feel that one of the bullet points is not fully covered in this example. What do you think? So the bullet points again are what it looked like and what was in it, where you left it, and what you want them to do about it. So which one of those bullet points maybe is not quite enough? Yeah, so Nagisa, we're going to talk about academic task 1 after this. We're talking about general task 1. So if you're doing the academic test, you can chillax for a few more minutes. We're coming to you. The last one, yes, I agree. Yeah, the last bullet point about what you want them to do. It's right. So let's have a quick look. So I'm writing to ask you whether you have had a black leather briefcase handed in, silver buckle, name tag. Yeah, so that's describing what it looks like. What about what was in it? Where is that? So here they've moved it down here. That's okay. If you feel like you want to move it around, you think it sounds better, that's okay, as long as you cover it. So they did talk about what was in it, assignments, the novel and all that. Whether you wanted to put about the packed lunch, it might be a bit too much detail, but anyway, it's okay. So then they talked about where they left it here. But see this third bullet point about what you want them to do, it's very short. I hope that the briefcase be returned to its rightful owner. It's also a bit unclear, like who that is. So if someone is saying, yeah, you could add more contact details, how you want them to contact you. Okay, so make sure you have an equal amount for each bullet point. Yes, we're coming to academic writing, you academic excitable people. Okay, we're just finishing up general. We're going to move on to academic in about 5 minutes. Okay. All right. So another thing that some people do, because they know they have to write 150 words, is they add in irrelevant things. Remember, with the letter, it has to sound natural. It's very important. It sounds natural. So what is irrelevant in this one? There's some things that sound strange, and just because you want more words. Yeah, the favorite book part might be a bit weird, but there's another part that's more weird. Yes, I'd like to apply to the position of part-time sales assistant, right, advertised in the Saturday's Daily Planet, right next to the article on talking to your plants. Now, that's not relevant. Would you really put that in your application letter? No. So don't just add unnecessary things just to get the words. It has to sound real, like you would really send it. Okay, now, one more that we're going to look at. Sometimes you get this kind of letter. So you're going, let's think about our 3 things. So again, how do we start and who are we writing to? Dear ... Write a letter to your friend. Okay, so ... you just make up a name. And it's a friend, so it won't be Mrs. Tan, will it? It'll be Freddie or whoever. Yes, so this is your friend. So our tone is going to be informal. And this is where it's weird because we wouldn't really send a letter usually, but we have to, so that's okay. Now, what's our purpose up here? Why are we writing? You're going on holiday and would like to ask a friend to look after your house. Why are we writing? To ask for help, to ask for a favor. Exactly. Okay, good. Now our bullets: explain the situation, tell your friend what needs to be done, arrange to meet your friend. So quite straightforward. So let's have a look at the tone. Dear Jane. Now your sign off needs to match the same tone. So I just thought of a name. Please don't change this to hi because they told you to start dear. So just do what they tell you. So dear Jane, cheers. So I like cheers because I'm Australian and we like a beer. But if you don't want cheers, totally fine. You could have see you soon, lots of love, bye for now. All of those are great. Yeah, but just make sure the opening and the closing match. Don't forget the name. Okay, so someone's asking about this start. How does this sound to you? Remember, we have to put the purpose first. Dear Jane, I am writing to ask you for a favor. Could you please look after my house? Okay, if you received that from your friend, how would you feel? Just your friend. Why are they so blunt? Why are they just going straight into the straight direct like that? It sounds weird. So if it's good to, you don't have to put how is everything, you don't have to put a greeting, but you can't just bluntly put the purpose in like that. It doesn't sound good in terms of your tone. Yeah, so I kind of like to have a greeting first. How is everything? I hope you're having a great week. As you know, I'm heading off to England next Monday for 3 glorious weeks. So I'm giving some background first before I put my purpose, because I want to ask for something also. I'm wondering if you might be free to do me a huge favor while I'm away. I'd be super grateful if you could look after my house. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm talking about what has to be done and when to meet. So can you see that it sounds a bit like talking? There really isn't much to do, so don't worry, but fantastic. If you could feed my cat, he can get in and out of the house all on his own. So trying to get some interesting and unusual vocab, but sounds real. Yeah, so one paragraph for each bullet point, then pointing to the next step. Or could you give me a call to let me know if this won't be too much hassle? It'll be great to see you. Notice I'm using contractions to make it sound more informal. Okay, in some ways, writing the informal letter is a little bit harder because it has to sound natural. Okay, yeah. So now, just one last thing before we move on. So we've talked a lot about answering the question, analyzing the question, and then the structure. They're the first two things, right? But you do have to think about your vocab and grammar. So just very quickly, it's good to train yourself to be able to spot grammar and spelling mistakes because you won't have a spell check or a grammar check. So can you spot some mistakes in this sentence just really quickly? If you edit with bold, italic, and underline, I mean, you can do that if you want. It won't make any difference. They don't mark you on italic, bold, and underline. There, that's right. There is wrong there. It should be T-H-E-R-E. What else? There's a couple. Used. Yeah, past tense of use. There's one more. Accommodation. That's a hard word to spell. Yeah, so be careful. Now, what about this one? Some spelling issues. Separate. Yeah, that's a very hard word to spell. Separate. Maintenance. Yeah. Okay, good. Well spotted. So it's important to practice your spelling. So let's just review. Please do what we just did. Spend some time analyzing your task to get your tone, your purpose, your bullets. Check they're plural bullets, like problems. The purpose needs to be in the first paragraph. Usually there are 5 paragraphs. The last paragraph, we look to the next step. Remember, the tone is really important. Yeah, try not to copy the words in the topic. Try to use your own words. Just start as they tell you. So dear sir or madam or dear Jane, no need for an address. You just start dear. And then please match the opening with the closing. Yeah, so that's general task 1. Woohoo! Now I think we've got a review to see, like a little quiz to see if you were listening. Is that there, the poll? Yes, okay. I'll just give you a few minutes to do that. All right, so which 3 things should you think about? Can you use texting language? Does it have to sound realistic? Should you use contractions? Or should you use very formal phrases? Yeah. Okay, now, while the general people are just doing that, academic people, please come back. We're going to start I know you're all very keen. And then general people, after this, you can have a little rest. But don't go away because we've still got to talk about task 2, which is the most important part. Okay, so academic people, what are we doing for your academic task 1? Just to see if you remember. You remember? Okay, no, reports. Yes, that can be reports, sort of. Yes, describing something. Yes, describing things in words. All right, so I'm just going to end the poll for the general. Just go through these review questions. So which 3 things do you have to think about? Your purpose, your tone, and all the bullets. Yes, almost everyone got that. Fantastic. You don't have to use British spelling. You can use any correct English spelling. And of course, long sentences are good if they're correct. Yeah, but long sentences for the sake of it with a lot of mistakes, that's not such a good idea. Now, texting language, no, you can't put things like lol. You've got to put proper words. Yeah, they can be informal words or idioms, but not texting language in the general letter. As long as you use impressive vocabulary. Yeah, you don't want to just use these big fancy words. It's got to sound real, like you would really send that letter in Canada or Australia or wherever. Can you use contractions? Yeah, don't, can't. Of course you can in an informal letter. In a more formal letter, you should use really formal phrases. No, try to think professional. Try to think like professional, modern business writing. Yeah, not these very old-fashioned fancy phrases. Yeah, like the undersigned, henceforth I will be your dutiful servant. Something like that. You don't want that. No. Okay, great. So general people, please relax. Academics, let's go. All right, so how many words are you writing for your academic task 1? But please, general, don't go away forever. We're going to, in about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, we'll start on task 2. Yeah. 150 words for task 1 academic. You are right. And how many minutes? 20 minutes. So it's a minimum of 150 words. Of course, you can write more, but be very careful with your time. You really need to manage the time here. With your task 1 academic, it takes a little while to learn how to do it, honestly speaking. So initially, when you're first learning, don't worry about the time. Just get it right. Then get faster. Yeah, but of course, before the test, you need to be able to do it in 20 minutes. What are you doing? Like we said, yes, in the computer test, you have a word count. You are right. So paper-based, I'll tell you what to do later when everyone comes back. Yeah, but in the computer delivered, you have a word count. All right, so we're given something that's visual and you have to describe it using words. Yeah. Okay, so this is what it looks like. All right, there are many methods to do this, and I'm just going to share the one that I like. But if you have your own method and it works well for you, fine. All right, so remember 20 minutes, 150 words. Sometimes you are given 2 things to describe. Don't worry about that. We're just going to talk about one and then we're going to talk about the other one. Yeah, so sometimes it's 1 and sometimes it's more than 1. So our first job is to understand what we're looking at. Yeah, so we're going to read and have a look. The charts show the number of Japanese tourists traveling abroad between 1985 and 1995 and Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market. Okay. Summarize the information, select and report the main features, make comparisons. This part is always the same. This is always our job. Summarize what we see, pull out the main things, the main features, and then we have to do this comparing. This is always what we do with the task 1. Good. So now we know what we're looking at. We're talking about Japanese tourists going to Australia, right? And then, or Japanese tourists going overseas generally, and then the ones that went to Australia. Okay, now, so when I do this, I ask myself a lot of questions. So the first question I always ask is, are we talking about the past? Are we talking about the past? Yes, right, 1985 to 1995. Usually it's the past, but sometimes it's not. So just always check. So we are talking about the past. Now we have to spend a little bit of time understanding what's going on and picking out the main features. So when we get a graph like this, always look at the vertical number. So Japanese tourists traveling abroad, number in millions. So be careful with your numbers. It's 2 million, 4 million, not 246. And now we have years, by year. All right, so now again, I ask myself some questions. Overall, is this trend going up or going down? Up or down? Up, yeah, overall it's going up. There's some changes, but overall it's going up. Yes, so it's overall increasing. Now I have to look at certain points to understand the trends. So I always look at the start. How many tourists were traveling abroad in 85? Approximately is a good word to use. Approximately 5 million, right? So always look at the start. Next, always look at the end. How many at the end of the period? Just under 16 million, isn't it? Yeah? Okay, and then the next thing you have to look at is the peak. Where is the highest point? Which year is the highest point? Yes, it's the same here. It's also 1995. Okay, so now we don't have to describe every single year. That would be incredibly boring. But we only have to describe where the trend changes. So which year should we talk about here? Which year did something interesting happen? Going up, going up, going up, going up. Right, we want to talk about this. Yeah, so it dropped back, didn't it? From over 10 million to just it dropped back a little bit. And then it sort of slowly increased again. So they're the things we would want to talk about for this graph. So we have to spend a minute like that, working out what the main trends are, what are important. There were some fluctuations, you are right, it's a nice word to use. Now let's look at this one. Vertical here is percent. Okay, so be careful, it's not millions here, it's percent. And then along here again, we have the year. Yeah, so, all right, so same thing. We're gonna, overall, is it going up or going down? Up or down? Up. Yeah, I don't know, 92 and 93, I don't know if it's the same or it increased a tiny bit. But if you wanted to mention that it was the same, it was a plateau, then that's also fine if you want to point that out. Yes. Okay, so yeah, it overall increased, didn't it, here as well, with some fluctuations. So again, we look at the start, which is 2%. We look at the end. How many percent is that at the end, 1995? About just under 6%. And then where is the peak here? Which year is the peak? Now, yeah, it's not the end here. So we're going to want to talk about this because it dropped back. Any other years we're going to want to highlight here? This one, right? So similarly, it mirrored this. Yeah, 89 to 90, there was a drop. Okay, great. So now we kind of know what we're going to talk about. We've picked out what we want to highlight. Now we have to start writing. We only have 20 minutes. Okay, so when we write, we also have 3 jobs. We have to have an introduction. We have to pull out the main features, which we've already done, but now we have to write it up with lots of data. And then we have to have this overview. So let's go through the introduction. Remember, you only have 20 minutes. The fastest way is to just rewrite the topic, paraphrase, just change as many words as you can. The charts, the chart and graph, show, compare. Number of Japanese tourists traveling, the number of Japanese who spent their holidays. Yeah, so literally changing the words. Don't copy the topic because it's not your words, is it? It's the topic words. So just paraphrase the topic. That's the first sentence. Okay, next sentence will be what we call the overview. So I'll read it to you. Overall, usually we start the overview with overall or in general. Despite the relatively small proportion of Japanese tourists coming to Australia, the Japanese tourist market corresponded closely with the growth of Japanese tourism overseas generally, with a trebling of both in the 10-year period. Okay, so in this sentence, we're just talking about the main trends for both the graphs. Is there any data, or are there any data? Are there any actual numbers? No numbers, right? So the overview should not have any actual hard numbers. Yeah, just overall trends. Okay, so that's important in your overview, which should come second. Now, our next paragraph, we have to describe everything in detail with lots of numbers. When you have 2 things like this, the easiest way to do it is just describe the first one and then describe the second one in different paragraphs. It's much easier. You won't get confused. It's clearer. Just do it that way. All right, so let's see how they've done it. So in 1985, only about 5 million Japanese traveled abroad, after which the number increased steadily, just as we said. By 1990, the figure had more than doubled to 11 million. Apart from a slight drop the following year to approximately 10 million, the upward trend continued until the end of the period when numbers reached over 15 million. So can you see that we've mentioned all the things that we noticed when we had that little look before? We talked about the start, the end, the main trends, anything that stood out. And notice that there's lots of numbers. So we know we could actually draw it. So we said what it increased to. We didn't just say, so we said increased steadily here, but we said by 1990, it had more than doubled to 11 million. So we know what the number is. So please don't leave that out. Always say, it increased to this number. It dropped back to this number because otherwise it's not clear. Yeah. The examiner should actually be able to draw it from reading yours. Okay, so include lots of data. Now, there's one more job that we haven't done yet. Do you remember what the third job is? Comparing. You must have some comparing language. In this first paragraph, can you spot the comparing language? We're saying, you know, this compared to this happened and then this happened. Can you spot a few things? While is definitely one, but what about in the first paragraph? There are two. Apart from, yeah, that's comparing, like this to that. And after which is comparing before and after. Okay, so you must have this comparing language. After which, apart from, in comparison, similarly, yeah, on the other hand, this kind of comparing language. The examiner is looking for it. Okay, and you're right. The next one, we're talking about this paragraph, we started with comparing, so that's great. While Australia was the destination for under 2% of Japanese tourists in 1985, the percentage had risen to over 6% by 1994. Yeah, that was the peak. The proportion grew consistently apart from a slight fall in 1990. See, we said what it fell from and to. After reaching its 1994 peak, the percentage declined marginally to 6% in 1995. Yeah, so we've mentioned all the important data. Now you're right, there's a while comparing language. Can you spot any other? Yep, again, apart from here. One more thing I want to point out. Can you see the describing language to make the vocabulary interesting? So instead of saying like it fell, it rose, yeah, they're using other words, aren't they, to make it more interesting. Can you spot any? Increased steadily. Yeah, a slight drop. Declined, yep. Slight fall, declined marginally, grew consistently. So these adverbs and adjectives, they're really important to give you better vocabulary. Yes, very good. Okay, so let's just quickly review. So we had the introduction where we paraphrased everything, like change the words. Then we have the overview with no numbers, just describing all the main trends. Then we described the first graph with lots of numbers, comparing language. And we said what it increased to, where, you know, from this to this. And then we looked at the second graph. And that's it. And you don't need a conclusion in your task 1 academic, but you must hit your 150 words. Okay, so we use this technique no matter what we are given, because sometimes it's not a graph. Yeah, usually it's a graph. But sometimes you get other things like this, a table. All right, but we do the same technique. So percentage, so here we read what we're dealing with. Percentage shows percentage of students who attended different types of secondary schools, 2000 and 2009. So we're again dealing with the past. Yes, if you want to use the percentage symbol instead of the word percent, you can, it's okay. Yep, no worries. All right, so again, summarize, select the main features and compare. Same thing. Again, we have to analyze what's going on. Now, when you get something like a table or a pie chart or something like that, we're looking for the things that are the same and the things that are different. We're looking for the trends and we're looking for the patterns. Yeah, so let's work out what's going on. We've got 3 years. Specialist schools, what happened? Up or down? 12, 11, 10. What happened to the number of students? It fell just a little bit, right? Only 2%. Grammar schools, what happened? What happened to grammar schools? It fell exactly half, right? 24 to 12, it fell by half. Volunteer schools, what happened? Oh dear, it plummeted. It's like, it dropped drastically, didn't it? And then what about community schools? Yeah, it increased also dramatically, almost 5 times. Yeah, so notice how I'm trying to use different ways to describe changes. So you could say it dropped from 24% to 12%. That's okay. But you could also say the number halved. And that's a bit more interesting, like just a bit, the language is a bit more interesting. So when we structure our writing, we're going to talk about these three together, aren't we? Because they all have the same downward trend. Then we're going to talk about community schools separately because it's different. They will always structure it so you can group it like that, the ones that are the same and the ones that are different, so you can compare. Let's have a look at the model. Okay, so again, we just rewrite the topic in our own words, and here is the overview. In general, we can see that specialist grammar and voluntary control school experience declines in numbers of pupils, whereas as a comparing language, the community school became the largest provider. Any numbers in the overview? No numbers, right? Okay, so to begin, now we just talk in detail with lots of numbers. We go through the three that all went down, right? The proportion in voluntary controlled schools fell here from just over half. So that's a different way to say 52%, just over half to 20% between 2000 to 2009. So don't forget the dates also. We don't know when it happened. Comparing word. Similarly, relative number of children in grammar schools, which was just under 1/4. See, different way to say 24%. Dropped by half in the same period. As for the specialist schools, the relatively small percentage of pupils attending this type of school, which was 12%, also fell, though not significantly. Yeah. However, so now we talk about the other one. While the other three types of schools declined in importance, comparing language, while the opposite was true in the case of community schools. While only a small minority were educated in these schools, in 2000, this figure increased to well over half during the following 9 years. Yeah? So that's nicely done. Now, one more that I want to look at, because sometimes you get this, a process. Now, people freak out about a process. Actually, process is not that difficult. In fact, I kind of think it's easier to do. So we do exactly the same thing. Okay, we rewrite the topic as our introduction. The diagram shows the process by which bricks are made in the building industry. Now we try to understand what's going on. When you have a process, you need to try to mention everything here, but try not to copy it exactly. You can change the form of the word to make it a bit more interesting. Okay, so let's understand the digger, digging up the clay. Clay goes through this grid onto a roller, sand and water are added. Then two options, the wire cutter cuts it into bricks, or it goes into a mold and forms bricks. These then go in the drying oven. 24 to 48 hours, we could also say it as 1 to 2 days, right? We could use different language that means the same thing. Then it goes in the kiln, moderate, high, cooling, packing, delivery. So we're just going to mention all of these things. Now, people always worry, how do I do the overview? What do I do? It's really easy. You just count how many steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can say approximately 7 steps, beginning with digging up the clay and ending with delivering the bricks, and with various steps in between, something like that. So let's have a look at the model again. So the introduction, just rewrite the topic, and then they describe everything. Yeah, so first the raw clay is extracted. We use a lot of this passive because we don't say people extract, we just use the passive. Raw clay is extracted from a quarry, then refined by separating larger pieces from smaller ones using a metal grid. So just go through everything there. And in the overview here, they've put it at the end. This is also acceptable. If you prefer, you can put the overview at the end, or you can put it second. I kind of like it second, but you can put it at the end also. The brick making process comprises 7 steps. These steps involve different processes, namely refining and reforming the clay, drying the clay, and firing. Yeah, so that's just summarizing the whole thing. So don't worry too much about a process. It's not that difficult. Now, just to go through some checklists for your Task 1 academic, again, you must have a minimum of 150 words. There's no maximum, but be very careful in managing the time. You've got to have that overview, no data in the overview, pull out the important information and then describe it with lots of data. So not it increased, it decreased. It increased from what to what? Very important. Comparing language, similarly, while, whereas, apart from, yeah. After that, all that. Linking words is often given by your comparing words. Paragraphs, you still need to use paragraphs, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. And that's why you have to think about how you're organizing it, like which ones are similar, which ones I'm going to put together, which ones are different. And then checking for mistakes. I'm going to talk about this a bit later with the essay. Okay, so some common mistakes that people make is they forget to have all the data. So they just say, oh, it increased, it decreased, it fell, it rose. No, you won't get very good marks. Sometimes people try to explain why. Oh, lots of Japanese people are going to Australia because they want to see the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's behind me here. Oh, this side. Yeah. No, you can't interpret. Never say why. Just describe what you see. You don't have to describe every single thing. Just where the trends change, the start and the end. And you've got to have your overview, yeah, as well, with no data. Okay, so that's your task 1 academic. Shall we do a little review quiz? Then we need to move on to talk about the essay. All right. So there's, which should you not include? Do you have to cover every piece of data? Do you have to have a conclusion? I'll just let that go for a minute. Now, general people, if you're not back, please come back because we're going to start talking about the essay. Okay. So if you have an overview at the start, you don't need an overview at the end. Yeah, I'll talk about that. It's a good question. All right, so I'm just going to stop the poll just because of time. Now, which one should you not have? Interpretation, that's right. Don't interpret. Yeah, don't say why. That's not what you do. You just describe what you see. Do you have to cover every piece of data? No. Yeah, only the main trends and where it changes and the things that stand out. Should you have a conclusion? So this is an interesting question. You don't need a conclusion. If you have your overview second, that's fine, and you just can end. You don't need a conclusion. However, if you need more words, you don't have enough words, you can kind of do an extra summary at the end, which becomes like a conclusion. But you don't need that. It's not necessary. Yep. Okay, great. Fantastic, thank you. Now let's move on now because we have to talk about the much more important part of the writing test, which is your task 2. What are you writing? Both for academic and general, what are you writing? An essay, yeah. How many words and how long? It's 250 words and you have 40 minutes. Now your essay is worth 66%. So you want to spend most of the time on it. Don't get stuck on your task 1. Just do it. Do what the examiners want and move on to the essay. It's more important. So just to review, same as with task 1, they're looking at your task response. How well did you answer the question? Did you stay on the topic? Your structure, your linking words, your paragraphs, your vocab, your spelling, your grammar, how correct it is, complex sentences, and punctuation. Okay, so all these things we have to think about when we do the essay. When we get the essay topic, yeah, so a good question. The time in the writing, you have to manage it. There's no one says, okay, move on to task 2. You just have to manage that time. There is a clock when you do computer delivered. There's a clock on your screen, on your computer. And if you're doing paper-based, there'll be a clock in the room. So you have to manage your time. All right, so the essay is divided into 2 parts. There's the topic, what you have to write about, and then there's your instructions, what you have to do. So it always looks like that. So here's some examples just to get us started. International tourism has brought enormous benefit to many places. At the same time, there is concern about its impact on local inhabitants and the environment. Okay, so this is our topic. We're talking about international tourism and how it's helped and not helped. And now down here, these are our instructions. Do the disadvantages of international tourism outweigh the advantages? These are our instructions, what we have to talk about. Okay, so 2 parts. Let's look at another one. So this is the topic here, and then the instructions here. All right, so in many countries, very few young people follow the news. That's your topic, young people, the news. What do you think are the causes of this? Why? What can you suggest to encourage more young people to follow the news? So these are your questions. This is what you have to talk about, and this is your topic. Okay, so we have to make sure that we carefully analyze the questions and make sure that we answer them and nothing else. Yeah, a lot of people don't do this very well, so it's really important. Now, every essay has this line: give reasons for your answer and include relevant examples from your knowledge or experience. This is always your job, no matter what the topic is. You must think of reasons and examples, always, okay? So keep that in mind. We're always thinking of reasons and examples, and our minimum is 250 words. So let's talk about counting words. Computer delivered, you have a word count, which is good. Paper-based, please don't waste time counting the words. Work out how many words you do on one line, and then just work out how many lines you need to do. Yeah, because it's a waste of time to count the words in the test. All right, so task response, we've already started doing this, analyzing the question. It's really important to stay on the topic. So here's that topic that we just looked at. In many countries, very few young people follow the news. What do you think are the causes of this? What can you suggest to encourage more people to follow the news? Now, here's someone's attempt. There are many, many, many things that are wrong with this, okay? There's the tone, too simple, the style, everything. But there's one big major problem to do with answering the question. What is it? I'll just read it to you. It's not true that people don't read newspapers or watch the news on TV. In my country, most people spend time finding about the news. Why do I say so? Because I see newspapers everywhere. If people don't buy newspapers, why does its publication continue? Yeah, it sounds defensive. It did not follow the topic. Did it? Remember that when we have our essay, we have the topic. The person's talking about news and young people. But when we have our instructions, there are 2 instructions here. What are the causes and what can you suggest? Yeah, the style is wrong, but I'm thinking about the content here. Okay, so this person is disagreeing with this. In these instructions here, did it ask you to agree or disagree? No, it didn't ask you to agree or disagree. It didn't say, what's your opinion of this view? So if it doesn't ask you for your opinion, don't give your opinion. Your job is to, what are the causes? What can you think of to encourage more people to follow the news? That's all you do in this essay. You don't argue with the topic. There's no why. Yeah, okay, so be very careful. So sometimes you do have to speak from your own point of view because the essay will ask you, what's your opinion? Any opinion question here? No. So be very careful that you answer the question that is given. Okay, very, very important. So that apart from all the problems with the style and the language, it would lose a lot of marks because it didn't follow the instructions. Now, I really love this slide, which I took from an IDP video. The good thing about your IELTS essay, there are many common types of instructions or questions. The topics are different, but the type of question is the same. And on the left here, we have some of the common question types. Yeah, so to what extent do you agree or disagree? This is asking for your opinion. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. So this is kind of half asking for your opinion. Why is it so? Give reasons and solutions. So that's a bit like the one that we just saw. Do the disadvantages outweigh the advantages? That's the one we just looked at. So that's kind of your opinion as well. Why is this so? What effect does it have on individual and society? So these are all different types. Now, the nice thing is that here on this column, there's a suggestion of how you should structure your essay. So structure is really important. It's the second thing the examiner looks at, your essay structure. Yeah, so if you got this one that we looked at, why is this so? Reasons and solutions. Here's a structure that's suggested. Your introduction, reason why, because it's asking you why. So remember, you have to give reasons and examples. So giving a reason, another reason, solution, conclusion. Yeah. And here's a different type of essay. This is agree or disagree essay. This is asking for your opinion. To give your introduction. We'll talk about introductions later. Give your reason why you agree or disagree. Another reason why you agree or disagree. Consider the other side, and conclusion. So this is a nice structure for this type of essay. So if you want to take a photo of this, please go ahead, or a screenshot. I think it's a really useful slide. What is a concession paragraph? That means you consider the other side. So I'll talk about that in a minute. In this type of essay, when you ask to agree or disagree, it's good if you consider the other side. Yeah, I really like this slide. Okay, so let's go on. So we saw this was one of the ones, right? So that's why when I am looking at IELTS essays, I always look at this part first, the instructions, so I know what type of essay it is. Discuss both these views and give your own opinion. Yeah, so this one is, it is asking for your opinion, but you also have to do some discussion. Discuss both these views. So now, of course, I need to read this and find out what the views are. Some people think that wild animals should not be kept in zoos. Others believe that there are good reasons for having zoos. Okay, so here there are two views, right? Both these views. View one is always introduced with some. So view one, what's view one? Some people think wild animals should not be in zoos. So no wild animals in the zoo. View two is always introduced with others. So others think, no, there are good reasons. Zoos can sometimes be good. That's view two. So I have to talk about both of these views. And what's the third thing I have to do? Give your own opinion. Yeah. You could give your opinion in the middle if you want to, as long as it's clear what you're doing. As long as it's very clear what each paragraph is about, you can do it in any order. Okay, so yeah, so this type of question, you have to do three things. Discuss view one, view two, and give your opinion. Now, introduction, we're going to talk about it in a while, so don't worry. So here's a structure for that essay. So the first paragraph would be your introduction. And you could give your opinion very, very briefly, but don't give any reasons. Remember, every essay we have to write reasons and examples. First, we talk about view one, giving reasons and examples. And view two, reasons and examples. We'd say our opinion and give reasons and examples, and our conclusion. Okay, this is optional. Giving your opinion in the introduction is optional. Yeah, it's up to you. Okay, so here I want to show you this essay. This one got a band 7. Okay, so in IELTS, 7 means good. So if you look at this essay, you'll spot some little mistakes. It's not perfect. It's not band 9, but it's a 7. So why is it a 7? Part of the reason is that it has a very clear structure, which we can have a look at now. So here is the introduction, which is a general statement about the topic. Then here, there's always a topic sentence. The first sentence tells you what the paragraph is about. There are many good reasons for having zoos in our cities. So this essay, they talked about view 2 first, which is okay. So this is view 2. Yeah, many good reasons. And then they give their reasons. However, many people feel that wild animals should be free. So now they're considering view 1. That's the topic sentence. So this paragraph is about view 1, that wild animals should be free. And here's the opinion. I strongly believe that zoos are no place, and the reasons are here. And here's the conclusion, where we just summarize all the points. Yeah, so it's a very nice, clear structure with very clear paragraphs. In this one, they put they did state their opinion in the introduction, but they didn't give reasons. So that's up to you if you want to do that. Yeah. Okay, so this is really important that you have a nice, clear structure with these linking devices. So that's the other thing, excuse me, that we have to think about. If you want a 7 or higher, under your cohesion and coherence, remember we talked about the linkers? It makes it flow. So what's nice about this is it's got good linkers. Yeah, so it's 7. It's not perfect, but the linkers help to guide you through. So at present and them. Now this is interesting. Why is that there? What is the them referring to? Okay, I'll read it to you. I believe that wild creatures should not be kept in zoos and there should be alternative ways to see them. Yeah, the animals. That's right. So instead of saying the animals or the wild creatures, that's a bit boring. It's like repeating. So we use a pronoun, them. This is important for your cohesion and coherence. So most importantly, and then they, unless, for example, and here's some more linkers, however, also, both views put forward valid points, however, in conclusion, as far as I'm concerned, although, all these words make it flow nicely. Yeah, so the examiners are looking. So why did it get a 7 and not higher? It's partly because the reasons that they gave are a little bit simple. The structure is quite good. And if you start looking at it carefully, there are too many spelling mistakes and too many grammar mistakes for a higher than a band 7. Yeah, we're going to have a look at that later on. But linking wise, it's pretty good. Okay. All right, so we've talked about answering the question. We thought about the nice, clear structure. Okay, so let's look at a different type of essay. That one we looked at was discussion and opinion. Now we'll look at opinion essay. Some people say that living in a house is better than living in an apartment. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? So we look at this part first. It's asking, now they're asking us for our opinion. Do we agree or disagree, right? Let's just understand what we're talking about. So I always look at the topic carefully. Some people say living in a house is better than living in an apartment. So house is better than apartment. So when I get this type of essay, I'd always ask myself, do I agree or do I disagree? Now, this word extent is important. How much? Do I mostly agree? Do I mostly disagree? Do I partially agree? Do I partially disagree? What do you think? Do you think house is better than apartment or the other way around? I mean, if you want a higher score, Rafat, I was saying about the reasons were a bit simple. Yeah, if you want 8 or higher, your reasons have to start being a bit more sophisticated and your examples have to be more sophisticated. Yeah. But many people need a 7 for their writing. It's kind of unusual for people to need more than a 7. So, Olia, you disagree that house is better. Okay, fine. What do other people think? Please let me know in the chat. Or someone put a love heart, so I assume that means you agree that house is better. Agree. And to what extent? Do you mostly agree? Do you mostly disagree? Yeah, we seem to have a lot of agrees. Okay, so if you agree, okay, we'll get to that. Hang on. So now we've got our position. I think it seems like most of you mostly agree. So now we have to think about our structure. Remember, structure is always important. So we have our introduction, which I'll talk about. In this essay, you have to put your position in the introduction. You have to tell the examiner, I mostly agree, or I mostly disagree. So the examiner knows, make it clear. Put your position in the introduction. Or you strongly agree. Fantastic, Terry. Okay, next paragraph, if you strongly agree, you'll give your reasons and examples. Why? Remember, you have to think of reasons and examples, usually 3. Now, I think, and it was same in that slide I showed you, it's good to at least think of one reason for the other side. There must be some reason why sometimes apartment's better than house. And then your conclusion. Okay? So the next thing we haven't talked about yet is brainstorming. I really encourage you before you write to spend a minute or so thinking of your reasons before you write. Otherwise, People tend to repeat the same reason over and over. So I'm going to ask you now, a lot of you said that you agree that living in a house is better. Why? Can you put some reasons in the chat? Why? Why is it better? You all said it's better. So it's good to train yourself to think of reasons. It's more space, more spacious, more space, more comfortable, sure. What else? Private, more privacy. Yep. Don't have to worry about rent. That's if you own it, maybe. Less noise. Yeah, more control over your environment. Yes, perhaps so. Part of a community, maybe. You can have pets more easily, no staircases. Yeah, scared of heights. Yep, that's okay. You can have a garden. Yep. Okay, all of those are great. Now, what about annoying neighbors? I think sometimes in houses there are neighbors as well, but maybe they're not as close. Oh, easy to get out if there's an earthquake. That's interesting. True, very valid. Now, why? Can you at least think of why some people would prefer apartments? Cheaper, maybe, yes? Yes. Sometimes they have better security, like security guards and all that, like less maintenance. That's true, easier to manage. Facilities, exactly. All those are fantastic. Fantastic, very good. So please train yourself to think of reasons like this. Now I'm going to show you another model that answered this one, and this is a higher level. You see what a higher level one looks like. This is maybe 8 to 8.5, okay? So let's have a look. Everyone wants to live in comfort. Some people find independent houses more convenient, while others prefer modern-day apartments. I agree that living in an apartment is more advantageous than living in a house. Okay, so this person doesn't agree with that statement. They said apartments are better. Yeah, so what was I going to say? So in this introduction, they just said a general statement about houses and apartments. So that's one way to do your introduction. Okay, so this person said they think apartments are better. Okay, so now let's look for the reasons and examples. So here's a linker. To start with, we are moving towards the culture of nuclear families. Life is more stressful. Given these circumstances, it's much easier to manage. So there's the first reason, managing. And here's an example. For instance, most apartments have housekeeping facilities that take care of all the cleaning and maintenance work. Yeah, so a lot of you said that. Can you see how the example, it's not a long story about your apartment and how it's so easy to clean and you love it and it only takes you 20 minutes. That kind of example is too long. Can you see how this example just supports the reason? It's very clear. Okay, so writing your examples is not giving a long story about your life. Okay, so just be careful. Remember, your essay is only 250 words. So here's another reason with a nice linker. Additionally, apartments are gated communities, a lot more secure. To exemplify, so here's the example. Most apartments have access cards, so the security. Okay, so that's their example here. And now a third reason, furthermore, apartments have common facilities. Okay, so this one doesn't have an example. You don't have to have an example for every reason, but you need to explain your reason. So they explain one does not have to travel outside, it results in a lot of time saving, it's easier. Okay, now at least they're considering the other side. However, living in an independent house does have its advantages. More spacious, can use the space, and hard to achieve. To conclude, both have pros and cons. Apartments satisfy the needs of our modern lifestyle. Okay, so this essay is at a higher level. Can you see that? Just the way it's written, the reasons, the examples. Okay, great. So that's an opinion essay, giving your opinion. Now we're just going to look at one more and we're going to kind of work it all the way through together. So let's have a look. Every year, thousands of students go overseas. Although many benefit, others go home disappointed. What are the benefits and drawbacks of studying in another country? So here's our instructions. Here are our instructions. How many things do we have to do? Rafat, in the previous slide, there was a counter argument. They were saying that houses do have their advantages, right? He was arguing that apartments are better. And then that paragraph said, yeah, but houses do have advantages as well. So it did consider the other side. Okay, so how many things do we have to do in this question? 4. No need to do 4. We only need 2. We have to consider the benefits and the drawbacks. Yeah, of what? So I always try to understand the topic in my own words. So every year, lots of students go overseas, some benefit, others are disappointed. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about, students going overseas to study. So here's a good, clear structure: the introduction, the benefits, reasons and examples, probably 3, the drawbacks, 2 or 3, depending, reasons and examples, and the conclusion. Now, this is a general essay. Can you see the difference? The other one about to what extent, that's an academic essay. The topics are a little bit more abstract for academic. Okay, so I want you to so you don't need to refute in that paragraph. No, you don't have to. The essay is not long enough for you to do that. Because remember, it's only 250 words and it's only 40 minutes. So you don't have to go into that much depth in this kind of essay. Yeah. Okay. So let's brainstorm again. Can you think of benefits of studying in another country? I want you to train yourself to do this in the test. You will be given some scrap paper and a pencil, so you can write down, even if you're doing computer delivered. Let's see, I've got some of the benefits: many different cultures, responsible, very good one, job opportunities, cultural experience, new environment, yes, get to know more people, international exposure, very good, all great. Assimilation, independence, excellent. What about drawbacks? What are the drawbacks? Expensive, culture shock, homesick, yes, yes, very good. Travel costs, yep. Time to adjust. Crime, yes, might not be as safe. Different culture, exactly. All of those are great. I had thought of similar ones. Exposure, independence, networking, culture shock, sometimes discrimination, and sometimes I thought of distractions. Like you go overseas and the parents are not there, and like, woo, time to party. Maybe not so much now with COVID. All right, so good. So we've brainstormed, and now we have to think about the paragraphs and how we're going to write. So we've already been thinking about this. So in the introduction, we need to introduce the topic and sometimes we have to put our position, if it's agree or disagree. This one is drawbacks and benefits. We don't have to give a position. Each paragraph, you need the topic sentence, which says what the paragraph is about. Then you give your reasons and examples. And then conclusion, you can just kind of summarize all the points in one paragraph. And if you want to, you can point to the future, what might happen in the future. Yeah. So introduction here, this is our topic. So one way to write the introduction, probably the fastest way, is we literally just change the words. Every year, annually, thousands of students, vast number of students, go overseas, venture abroad, to study, to pursue their studies. Yeah, so we literally just change the words. That's one way to do it. Another way to do the introduction is to say a general statement about the topic. So these days, it seems that almost every second new graduate attained their qualification abroad. Many of these students find study experience rewarding, but some are less satisfied. Okay, so just sort of similar saying about the topic with a general statement. Now, so each paragraph, we've got to remember we have to have a topic sentence to tell the examiner what the paragraph is about. Then your reasons and examples. So this is paragraph 2. Studying abroad offers students a number of benefits. So the examiner knows, oh, okay, this paragraph is about the benefits. So we have a linking word. Firstly, now remember our first reason was exposure. It facilitates exposure to new and diverse cultures. Now I'm explaining what my reason means. Sometimes I can give an actual example, like for example, but sometimes I just explain. Students can not only immerse themselves in the lifestyle traditions of their host country, but may have the opportunity to discover the worldviews and cultural practices of fellow students from across the globe. Okay, now I've got my next reason with a linker. In addition, being alone in an unfamiliar place and having to solve issues of day-to-day living can foster a strong sense of resilience and independence. That was our second reason, right? And here's an example. For example, negotiating rent, transport, and food will teach a young person valuable life skills. Again, you can see my reason is not a long story. It's just a short example to support my reason. Okay, now I'm considering the other side. Conversely, there can be several drawbacks to venturing abroad. So that's the topic sentence. One could be a confronting sense of culture shock that may arise if students find themselves in a place with different values. And here's an example. If a person has grown up in a conservative or rural environment, studying in a liberal cosmopolitan city may prove to be extremely jarring. Further to this, so here's another reason, a very dynamic environment can lead to a range of distractions, nightlife, other people, okay? And then the conclusion, we just kind of summarize all the points. In conclusion, opting to complete tertiary studies can offer increased exposure, opportunities to develop independence, however, cannot be denied. It can lead to culture shock and distractions. Each person needs to consider their own temperament and circumstances before making this life-changing choice. Yeah. Okay, so I know I've gone through that quite fast. It's because I want to leave time for our question and answer session. But I hope you've got an idea about the steps that we go through to do the essay. Yeah. Okay, now there's a couple of other things that we haven't quite touched on. So do remember that spelling. So we've talked a lot about answering the question, task response, structure, how to structure it, cohesion and coherence, making it flow, linkers. Now we have to remember the grammar and the vocab. So under your vocab, the spelling matters. We don't want, remember the essay is more formal writing. So we don't want slang words like hubby, honey, or like, I don't know, can't think of any slang. Yeah, we don't want really casual words. Yeah, more formal language. We also have to think about words that go together, correct vocabulary, what we call collocations. Now, coming back, do you remember this essay? This was the one that got 7 before. This one has some nice vocabulary. The problem with this is it has some spelling mistakes, also too many, but it has some nice vocabulary, see? And it's correct. And what we call collocation, words that go together. Tourist attraction, alternative ways, rare species, educational importance, natural habitat. It also has a few unusual, more unusual words. Precious, cages, cruel, endangered. So all this vocab is quite nice. It's band 7. Just not enough of it to get a band 8. What words need to use a capital letter? This is for grammar. Remember, at the start of a sentence, we need a capital letter. And for proper nouns like Chinese, Indian, African, yeah? Okay, so that's correct vocabulary. We have to think about that. Now your grammar. Now I know grammar is tricky. Some of you might have fantastic grammar. If you don't have good grammar, what I think is a good idea is to write an essay, do a practice one, show it to a friend or someone you know or a colleague who has really good grammar. Get them to correct it and point out your mistakes. You will find out that you have habits. Maybe you forget your past tense. Maybe you forget and the. Maybe you forget your prepositions in, on, at, to. So I want to show you this band 7 essay again and in a minute, and we'll look at some of these mistakes. But one other part of the grammar that we talked about is being more complex. So here's just one example. Global warming is a phenomenon. It is caused by increased carbon emissions. So that's 2 sentences. That's okay. Nice sentences, nice vocabulary. But when we combine it into one sentence, it's better. Global warming is a phenomenon which is caused by increased carbon emissions. Yeah? So that's a more impressive sentence joined together with a relative clause. Okay? So try to make these more complex sentences with although, however, whereas, while, which, that, those ones. Now, let's talk about the errors, because if you have too many mistakes, yeah, it will pull your score down. Now, in this band 7, there are quite a few spelling mistakes, but there are also grammar mistakes. So I'm wondering if you can spot any of them. So if you spot one, can you say which paragraph and which line, like P1, line L2, and what the grammar mistake is? Can you spot any? Paragraph 1, yeah, which line? There are also spelling mistakes. In the first sentence, there's a mistake. That's a spelling mistake, believe, yeah, that's right. Should be believe with an, but I'm thinking of grammar. Paragraph 3, sentence 2. They should not be kept in cages and small areas in zoo. You're right, there's an article mistake. Yeah, in the zoo or in a zoo or in zoos would be better actually. Paragraph 3, they is not. Yes, where is that? This is cool. Is that down here or is that paragraph 4? Can't see the they is not. But they is not is correct. That's a mistake. Yeah, subject verb agreement. For the city. First paragraph, 4 sentence. Yes, all over the world. So this person has problem with articles, and the. Yeah, paragraph 2, Isabel, which line? There, that's a spelling mistake. Yep. Yeah, so there are quite a few spelling mistakes. So that is why it won't get more than a 7. Yeah, but there are also quite a few grammar mistakes. Let's talk about some of them. So as a lot of you spotted, there are mistakes with articles. So all over the world, for the city, get a chance or get the chance, both are okay. The Chinese panda, that specific one. In a zoo, yeah, or in zoos. For the animals, for the animal, yeah. Okay, so articles are tricky in English. Yeah, so if it's only one, we have to use the. If there are many of the type, then we can use a. This is for singular. Okay, so if you know that your articles are not good, you can also go on the wonderful World Wide Web and look for grammar practice with articles. So another problem that people have are these little words, in, on, at, to. We call them prepositions. So wild animals, in, not at. So plurals. So here we've got news story. We frequently see news story, but they're talking about more than one. So news stories. So be careful with plurals. And this is what someone spotted. They is not. This is subject verb agreement. So they is plural. They are not. This is a very common mistake. So it's important that you get to know your own mistakes, what you tend to do. So that means in the test, if you can, you should leave maybe 2 minutes at the end to go through and spot your common mistakes and fix them. Okay. So just a few reminders. Now, if you are doing paper-based, you can draw all over the sheet. It doesn't matter. You can do your plan there. You can underline things. And if you're doing computer delivered, you will be given some rough paper. Yeah. Also in paper-based, if you fill up one sheet, you can just ask for another piece of paper. But there's no time to do a rough draft. Yeah, there's no time for that. So you just have to do a plan and then start writing. Remember not to copy the question, use your own words. Yeah, so the reason why that one also got 7 is that the reasons and examples are a bit general. Try to make them quite specific and clear. But on the other hand, you don't want to be like too detailed. Like someone said about a house that, it's easier in an earthquake. That reason is a little bit too specific, a bit too detailed. I mean, maybe you could say, if you said it's safer to live in a house, that would be fine. It's a bit of a broader reason. Yeah, and remember not to tell too many long stories. You can use examples from your life, but just short to illustrate your reason. Okay, so please analyze like we've been doing. Work out what your instructions are. Stay on the topic. Work out your structure. And remember, you must have paragraphs and linking words. Yeah, so here's a little checklist. Did you answer all the questions that you've been asked? Did you stay on the topic? Did you have paragraphs? Usually 4 or 5 in the essay. Did I have nice linking words, topic sentence, spelling and vocab, complex sentences, and your punctuation, full stops, commas. Yeah. In the computer test, the essay is manually marked. Yeah, even for the computer delivered test, the essays are all marked by human examiners using those 4 criteria. Yep. They're sent to all these human examiners all around the world who mark them. And a different person marks your task 1 and your task 2, not the same person. Okay, just some overall advice for the essay. Remember, task 2 is worth a lot more. So remember to spend most of your time on task 2. Okay, don't get stuck on task 1. Analyze the question, work out what you have to do, then brainstorm your reasons and think of your examples. Nice, clear structure with usually 4 or 5 paragraphs. We want a range of vocab. Yep, working out what you have to do and staying on the topic. Linking words. This is important. If you run out of time, do not write bullet points. Same in the letter. Don't put bullet points. You must, in all of IELTS writing, you must write in full sentences with full stop. So if you run out of time, you just run out of time. Yeah, but try not to by practicing. And checking, like we said, work out, know what your common mistakes are so you can check for those. All right, so once you register to do your IELTS with IDP, you get access to a lot of these materials from IELTS Essentials. So you will be able to access preparation materials. There's a Facebook community, practice tests, tips and blogs by experts and support videos. Even right now, you can visit the IDP website for your country. Oh yes, I forgot about the review. Thank you. And yeah, so please answer the review questions for the essay. So even right now, you can visit the IDP website for your country, and there are quite a lot of free resources there. And I'll also type the overall IELTS website. This is an important one to get to know as well. There are lots of tips and resources there too. Okay. Yes. Okay. I'll just let this run a little bit longer. Okay, I'm going to end it just because of time. You must write exactly 250 words. Yeah, no, you can write more, of course. There's no upper limit. You could write 500 words, but I would be very worried about the time. Yeah, but minimum 250. Yeah, don't count the words in the test if you're doing paper-based. Work out how many words on one line and then work out how many lines you need to do. Don't waste time counting words. If you run out of time, you can put point form. No, don't do that. Yeah, you must write in full sentences. Okay, good. All right, great. So, yeah, so we're up to questions now. I think there are a few in the Q&A box. Do you want me to look at those ones first, or Patrick, what way do you want to do it? I can look at the Q&A ones first, or up to you. Or we can take questions. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, maybe I'll just look at some in the Q&A box. All right. What should we do if we don't understand the chart, graph, diagram talks about? Well, that's where you have to practice. It's like any test. You have to do lots of practice, and you'll realize that in IELTS, the same types of questions keep coming up over and over. So they'll become familiar. Yeah, so you shouldn't get one that's totally shocking to you. Okay. Yeah, sometimes there is a map. We didn't talk about a map because they don't use it very often. But if you get a map for your task 1 academic, usually you look out for the things. It's usually 2 maps. One is in the past and one is in the future. So look for the things that are the same and the things that are different and describe those. Is handwriting important in the test? Only so far as the examiner can read it. Yeah. So if your writing is incredibly messy and no one can read it, then maybe you should think about writing in capital letters. That's okay. But as long as it's legible, you're not marked on your handwriting, as long as people can read it. So if you're worried, write something and show a friend, see if they can read it. Okay. What if I don't know anything about the topic or the question?
Yeah, Jacqueline, I have a question here from the Q&A box. When practicing to write the essay, how can I tell if the reasons I give are overgeneralized?
How can you tell if your reasons are overgeneralizing? I don't know. It's very hard to answer that without, it's very hard to answer. What I suggest you do is look at some model essays. So you get used to seeing the types of reasons that are given. Yeah, so you start to see, oh, they're the kind of reasons they use. Yeah. It's hard for me to think of an example, but like if we're thinking about the zoos are bad or zoos are good, like, you know, animals will be unhappy if they're in a zoo. That's a bit broad kind of a reason. It's not very specific. Yeah, that would be an example. But what I would do is look at some essays that are considered good or very good and see what kind of reasons they have. Yeah. Okay, here's a question. Can we make up false information? Of course, you can make up false things, but you don't need to. Just now when I was asking you to think of reasons, you gave lots of good reasons. All those reasons you gave were fine. They weren't too general, and they were just from your own knowledge and experience. Okay, so that's fine. You don't need to make up false reasons. It's actually, I find it harder to do. Sometimes people like to make up false studies. Like they quote some study that they actually just made up. That's also not necessary. The examiner doesn't expect you to do that.
Jackie, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have some tips on how to save time on the brainstorming part?
That one again is practice. So sometimes what I tell my students is that we don't even write the essay. You just look at lots of different topics and you just spend that time brainstorming. But you all were pretty good, like you were coming up with reasons really quickly. Yeah, so sometimes don't write the essay, just have a session brainstorming for different topics. That's a good way to do it. It's something, it's like anything, you can train yourself to do it quickly. Yeah, but that's a good question. There's a question here, if reason asks for advantages or reasons with a plural, do you need to give at least 2 points? Yeah, when it says advantages or disadvantages, you have to give more than one. Usually when it's like benefits and drawbacks, usually you give 3, but at least 2. Yeah, so it does matter because it's not enough. It's not a full enough answer. For essay examples, can you include real data? Sure, if you know some data, really real data that's relevant to your essay, sure, why not? Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jackie. Before we proceed to live Q&A, later on we will be playing a CD tutorial video for those who will be taking the CDIL or the computer delivered IELTS test. So you can stay and watch those videos at the end of our live Q&A. So
yeah, the videos are really good.
To the live Q&A.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so we'll proceed to the live Q&A. So if you have some questions to Miss Jackie, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. Then please state your name and state where you're currently right now. Okay, so let's start. So we have Joseph Bonin James. Can you state your full name and state your name and where you're from?
Hi, hello, good evening, everyone. I am Joseph Jaime. I am from the Philippines.
Hello, Joseph.
Hello. I just have a question. I noticed in the first example at writing task 1 for academic about the graph of the Japanese tourist traveling abroad. I saw in the introduction part, it says there that the chart and graph compare the number of Japanese who spent their holidays overseas. I'm just concerned about this phrase here, the Japanese who spent their holidays overseas. It seems to me like an interpretation of the graph. This is not actually an information given on the charts.
You're saying because it just said traveled abroad.
Yep, holidays abroad.
Okay. I mean, strictly,
is this okay?
You could argue that, I suppose, but it's not really interpretation. It's not saying, I mean, if you felt uncomfortable, you don't want to say that because you think it's interpretation, that's fine. Yeah, you could say who traveled overseas or who went overseas. Yeah. But I think in that case, Japanese tourists are people who go for holidays, aren't they? I don't think we're really interpreting.
Yeah, but there are a lot of reasons that they are traveling, right? Not just
but if they're
holidays.
don't tourists go for holidays? What other reasons do tourists go overseas? Otherwise, they're business travelers. They're not tourists, are they?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's very, very precise, but they wouldn't penalize you for that. But if you felt uncomfortable, you didn't want to say it that way, it's totally fine also.
Okay.
Yeah, you could paraphrase it in a different way that you're comfortable with also.
All right.
Yeah, so if you really write like that, you'll do wonderfully because you're very like careful. So that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Joseph, for that question.
Thank you for the question.
Next, we proceed to Kirana. Please state your name and where you're from.
Hello, my name
Hi.
is I'm from Indonesia. I would like to ask 2 questions if you don't mind, but it's very simple. It's very quick.
Sure.
I was wondering, since you mentioned the simplicity of the answers as one of the things that probably would make or break your score, do you also count in for the correctness of the answer? And for the second, I would like to know, like, do you have any other tips to ante up your performance during the writing portion of the IELTS? Thank you.
So I'm not quite sure what you mean about the first question about simple or complex.
I think earlier you mentioned that in order for you to gain higher scores, that you should be using complex like words or examples or reasons. But with that in mind, would the correctness of the answer be considered as well?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, if you want a band 8, so I don't know what band score you need also. If you're wanting a band 8 in your writing, that means your reasons have to be really relevant and fully kind of developed. And yeah, very relevant to the topic. So yes, if you want a band 8, that matters. If you want a 7, then your reasons just have to be, yes, relevant and on topic, but they don't have to be so fully expanded. Yeah. I mean, if we're thinking about that one about benefits and drawbacks of studying overseas, so the reasons that you all came up with they were fine. They would be fine for a band 7 or a band 8. It's also how much you explain them and you elaborate on them that makes the difference. But if you said, a drawback is I can't sleep or something, that's like a bit off topic. That's not such a good reason. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then the other one, what was the other question? Sorry, I have a really bad memory. What was the other question?
I was just wondering if you have like any other topics to ante up your performance. Tips to ante up your performance.
I just think that you've got to start doing it. Like a lot of people with the writing, they read a lot about it, they look at a lot of models and everything, but they don't actually start doing the writing. So you've got to just start doing it, and then ideally you have enough time that when you first start doing it, don't worry about the time. Just try to answer the question well and follow all the steps. So you have a nice, clear essay. And then as you practice more, start doing it faster to time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be my advice.
Okay, thank you. It was a nice session. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for your questions.
Okay, thank you, Kirana, for your question. Next, we proceed to Abdirahman. State your full name and where you come from.
Really, thank you so much, madam. I don't need to ask a question for madam, but I wanted to need to say I'm so appreciated to hear. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for coming. Thanks for staying. We covered a lot of ground.
Okay, thank you for that appreciation. Next, we have Susie. Can you state your name and where you come from?
Hi, my name is Suchi from Jakarta, Indonesia.
Hi, Suchi.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for your explanation earlier. That's really helpful for me. I do have questions though. Like, do you have any specific tips for us to improve the skills in the writing of the essay? I mean, like, for example, do we have to focus in one topic, since you mentioned earlier that you don't need to worry about the time though? Like, do we have to be perfect in one particular subject? That's
okay, that's a good question. So you mean, no, I think that I didn't really talk about this, but in the IELTS essay, certain topics come up regularly. So it's good to start reading.
Yeah.
And this also helps you with your speaking.
Yeah.
It helps you with the reading test itself.
Exactly.
So but you don't have to read in depth. It's not like you have to go back to, and study like a course. But if you start reading the news, just like the BBC app or Voice of America or whatever, whichever one you like, but reading in English, then and also bearing in mind that certain topics come up a lot in IELTS. So these topics are things like education, travel, environment, culture, what else? Health.
Okay.
Sometimes sports and entertainment.
Yeah.
So all of these topics are usually in the news. Like things like politics and that kind of thing won't never be in the essay. It's these kind of general topics.
Yeah, general.
Environment, as mentioned, environment will definitely come up. Transport, sometimes, urbanization. So if you start looking at IELTS topics from the past papers, you'll start to see that the same topics keep asked about, and then you'll see what you kind of need to have knowledge about.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the types of essay, like we looked at a few different types this evening, it's good to get familiar with those main types, because you don't know which one you're going to get. It might be agree or disagree, but it might be discuss both views and give your opinion, or it might be a different one with 2 little questions. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, because we have to shifting to the other topic and I have to concentrate to give my best answer. Yeah, but the most important thing is to just answer whatever it is, the instructions that they give you. Just make sure you just answer those. Oh, the answer. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much. No, thank you. Thanks for the question about the different subjects that come up, because they are the common ones. But you don't have to be an expert. So I saw quite a lot of questions about, do you have to give statistics and figures? No, just know what's going on in the world, the main things, the main trends, and being able to give examples. So for environment, for people who live in countries that have been badly affected by climate change, you can give examples from your own experience, what you've seen, the way the weather has changed, things like that. Yeah. Okay,
let's proceed to the next one. We have Jacqueline. Can you state your name and where you come from?
Yes, good evening. My name is Jacqueline. I'm from the Philippines. I'd just like to ask about the use of idiomatic expressions when writing the essay. Does it bear a scoring on the specific criterion of Lexical Resource?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So in the essay, they don't really encourage you so much to use idioms because it's more formal writing. So if you think about how you write an essay for university or school, you don't really use idioms so much, right? Maybe we'd use them in narrative writing, or we use them when we speak for sure, but I wouldn't use them overly in the essay, or I wouldn't worry about them too much. If you notice that tonight, the examples we looked at, there weren't really idioms in those essays. Yeah. But I mean, correct collocation, like we looked at in the essay, correct vocabulary and words that are used together correctly, that's important. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jacqueline, for that question. Next, we proceed to Aida. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Aida from Malaysia. I have a question for task 2. The question type for discuss both views and give my own opinion. When I give the opinion and the other opinion, for my opinion, should I continue with the view that I agree on, or just should I give another example or another explanation?
Sorry, so when you're talking about your opinion,
yeah,
is that what you're saying? Yeah. So I often think with the paragraph about give your own opinion, it's kind of easier if you kind of sit on the fence a little bit. Do you know what I mean? So you can agree with one of the views, but then you have to give a reason why that's your reason. And then, but I think it's often good that you consider, maybe it makes it easier if you also just consider the other side as well a little bit, unless you have a very strong view. But it is true, you have to be careful that in your opinion paragraph you don't just repeat the same reasons from view one.
I have to give my own explanation.
Yeah.
All
yes.
right.
I mean, you can kind of say something similar, but you have to at least say it in a slightly different way, so you're not just repeating. Yeah, that's a good
Right. Thank you
But
so
that's
much.
why I find it easier when I try to discuss both views. I find it easier if I kind of sit on the fence a little bit, in my opinion. Like I say, well, it could be this, but it also could be this. Yeah, but it's up to you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you, Ida, for that question. Next, let's proceed with Jenna. Kindly introduce yourself and where you come from. Jenna?
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can
Hi.
hear you.
Hi. First of all, thank you for such an insightful session. It was extremely wonderful. It has fueled my knowledge a lot.
Well, that's good.
Actually, we do need to follow. It's like it's already been said by you as well as a lot of IELTS trainers that we do need to follow a certain structure of paraphrasing, overview, and then we move on to the body paragraph sort of a thing.
Is this task 1 academic or
probably both of them, because we do give an paraphrasing, in my opinion, for both of the tasks, 1 as well as 2, if I'm not wrong.
You can, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I've observed that some of the very good, like band 8 or 9 essays don't follow the structure, and yet they get very good bands despite, going through the process.
Yes, that's very true. Particularly for the essay, some people who write at a very high level, they don't follow these kind of strict structure that we give here. And so it's not like a rule, like you have to answer in that way and you have to structure it this way or you won't get the score. So the examiners, when they look at it, they just want to make sure it fits the 4 criteria. And so there are some people who have never done a course like this, but they know how to think of good reasons. They know how to structure their writing in their own way. So they answer the question very well. Their grammar is very good.
Yeah.
So yes. So it's not like you have, it's not so prescriptive. It's not prescriptive to that extent.
Right.
But for many people, they're not at that level. So if you're not at a 8.5 level, then to give people so much freedom like that is very frightening. So a structure, a nice clear structure, will make sure you're giving the examiners what they're looking for.
Right. So according to you, it is advisable to go through the structure and follow the instructions, all the instructions, right?
Oh, you need to do that. You have to make sure you answer the question, because this is the problem. Like some people are exceptionally good writers.
Yeah, very fortunate.
Like, very good writers, but they don't answer the question. Then they get a low mark maybe for their task response. Yeah. And then they get a very high mark for their vocab and their grammar. But then it pulls their whole score down to maybe a 7 when actually they could have got an 8.5 or a 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there was one more question. It's very difficult to understand the difference between agree and disagree and opinion. Give your opinion related essay, writing task 2. So could you just give me some clues?
Okay, so one type is to what extent do you agree or disagree? Or sometimes they just have do you agree or disagree?
Exactly.
So in that essay, you have to have your position. You have to decide whatever the topic is.
Right.
Do I agree or disagree? Then you have to think of your reasons to support. And I think it's good to argue the other side. You don't have to, but I think it's better. At least consider the other side. Now, the other type of essay is discuss both views and give your opinion. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but sometimes they also give to what extent do you agree, right? So that is the third one.
To what extent do you agree or disagree? It's just like agree and disagree, but it's just how much. Like,
right.
So agree or disagree is simple, and agree or disagree is usually in the general essay. Do you agree or do you disagree? The extent one is usually academic, and it's usually something, and then you have to think, like, how much? Do I mostly? Do I partially? Do I strongly? Yeah, that's all.
So it is advisable to use those phrases like strongly, partially, and
if they ask you what extent, that's what they're looking for. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And the opinion related essay, like to what, like in my opinion, so is it advisable to give the entire statement saying that in my opinion, we should do this and we shouldn't do this?
So when it's agree or disagree essay, that is your opinion. But sometimes they ask you, discuss both views and give your opinion. That's one type. So in that type, you have to think about view one. Pretend that you believe view one and give reasons. Then you pretend you believe view two and give reasons. And then you have to give your own personal opinion, what you think that is.
Okay. I got it.
I mean, that's one way to do it. There are other ways to do that essay, but that's the easiest way, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we will be having 3 remaining for the live Q&A. Okay, due to our limited of time. The first one, we have Nagisa. Can you introduce yourself and where you come from?
Hello, this is Nagisa. I come from the Philippines. Thank you, Jacqueline, for your wonderful. Thank you very much. I have a question regarding, in terms of completing the 250-word academic writing requirement, particularly in graphs or picture analysis. What if a student or a test taker has about 30 seconds left to complete the word requirement, despite having mentioned the salient or pertinent points? What filler sentences do you suggest we add without running the risk of, mentioning unnecessary or words that might compromise the, the thought or the main point of the.
So the graph one, the graph or table or whatever, that won't be 250. That'll be 150 words, right?
Correct. If it's 150 words, then.
So what they could do, if you've kind of done everything and you haven't got enough words, is that what you're saying? You need more words. You can do it. You can do a conclusion.
All right.
And kind of just summarize everything in an extra conclusion. You don't have to have that, but if you do need more words, you can do that.
All right, that's very good. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Thank you very much. Next, our second to the last question will be coming from Fatima. Can you introduce yourself and where you come from? Hi, Fatima.
Hi, I'm Fatima.
Hello.
I have 2 questions. The first question is about the disabled persons, because I'm one of them. Can the disabled persons do the IELTS exam?
Oh, of course. Yeah, definitely. So, of course. So you can, I don't know all the details, but when you register to do your IELTS, you can ask for special consideration. And depending what particular challenges you have, they can give you more time, or they can present the test in a different way. Yeah, definitely there are ways that we can help you to do your IELTS, but you need to talk to your test center wherever you're planning to do your IELTS. Yeah, but all different kinds of people do IELTS, people with vision issues or hearing issues. Yeah. Yeah, so definitely.
Okay, the second question is about the expressions that we can use in the task one, which is summarize a graph.
Summarize?
Summarize a graph.
Summarize a graph, yeah.
The expressions that we can use in.
So some of the good expressions, like, it depends what you're doing. So, one part of when you do the graph is you need to compare things. So some useful expressions are things like, while this happened, while this happened then this happened, or before this, after which, we saw that one, right? After which, apart from, similarly, you could use in comparison, whereas. Yeah, all of those are very good to use.
Increase drastically. Or
Drastically.
Increase,
Yes, exactly. So that's another thing, your vocabulary. So, you need to describe changes. So people will say it increased, it decreased. Yeah, but if you can use another word with that, so you can say it increased steadily, it declined drastically if it was like a very big drop, or it increased marginally, just a tiny bit. These kinds of words are very good too. You can find a lot of this vocabulary if you just Google. If you go on Google and look for IELTS Academic Task 1 vocabulary, you'll find lots of examples.
Okay, thank you very much. Then our last test taker for this live Q&A, we have Thorn Lixney. Can you introduce yourself and where you come from?
Hello. Yes, my name is Mai. I'm from Cambodia. I have one question about task 1 for academic. Like, when I got the test, I feel it's very difficult for me, like, to compare two table, like one table, for example, like exchange student from an Australian university to Europe, and another table is like exchange student from European country to an Australian university. So how do I compare it and make an overview of that table?
So I think there are many ways to do it. Okay, there's not only one way, but I think people get very confused. So if you're given 2 graphs or 2 charts, I find it easier to do what we did today. Talk about one of them, and you're comparing, you do within that one table, which is the biggest, which is the smallest, that kind of thing. And then talk about the other one separately and do your comparing within that. Don't try to compare across the 2 because it gets very confusing. That's just how I do it. I mean, there are many ways. Because remember, you don't have a lot of time and you don't want to confuse yourself too much.
Thank you so much. And one more thing, like we try to use how to say it, the wide range of words, like synonyms of the word. So like instead of we use it exchange student, like, so what word that we can use instead of exchange student?
Yeah, so this is always a challenge, right? Because you have to keep talking about exchange student, but you don't want to keep saying it. So you have to, you might have to repeat it a couple of times, but then can anyone else think of other ways? This is where you have to kind of train your vocabulary. So things like students from different countries, students who have who are visiting other countries to study, I don't know, international students. yeah, it's not always that easy to do, but you can repeat the same word a couple of times. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Students who study abroad, exactly. Foreign students, yep, all those are good. Yeah, yes, but I agree with you. It is quite challenging sometimes.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's the end of our live Q&A.
Thank you so much for your, sorry, Patrick, for your lovely
for-
questions.
yeah.
Really great, really thoughtful. I can tell you're all going to do wonderfully well.
Yeah, Miss Jackie, do you have any last tips or some advices to our
Oh, gosh.
speakers?
No, I think all of you are already IELTS experts and you're going to be fine. I mean, just keep working towards your goal solidly. A little bit every day really makes a difference, just as you would approach any other exam. Yeah, you just prepare bit by bit by bit and you'll get there.
Okay, that's a good advice. So again, just to remind you, for those who wish to stay and for those who will be taking the computer delivered IELTS test, we'll be playing a CD tutorial videos after the end of this webinar. So you can stay and watch those videos. And just a few reminders, especially for those who will be taking their paper-based test in IDP Philippines. You may bring your pencils. Make sure that it's a Mongol and number 2 pencils. But if you forgot to bring one, then we will lend you one during the examination. And again, for those other test centers, you can ask directly to your test centers about the details of your IELTS test. Again, that is all for tonight.
And I just want to thank the team. Sorry, I always forget. Thank you to the wonderful IELTS team, including you, Patrick, for your great moderation, and everyone else from around the region for your expert question answering skills. And thanks to everyone for attending and staying.
Yeah, we hope you're able to answer all your queries, but not least message us directly and we'll get back to you with a response. Thank you to all of you for tuning in, and a huge thank you, Miss Jackie, for walking us through today's webinar and answering our questions.
Pleasure.
For those who will take their IELTS test around later this February to March, we are inviting you once again for a masterclass webinar focusing on 4 components of the IELTS test. And have a great night all. Thank you very much and stay safe.
Welcome to our computer-delivered IELTS Tutorial 1. This tutorial will show you how to complete and prepare for computer-delivered IELTS. For each section, there's a clock at the top of the screen, which tells you how much time you have left. For the reading and writing tests, the clock will turn red and flash when you have 10 and 5 minutes left. The tests will automatically stop when the time finishes. The instructions for each part are in the box at the top of the screen. You can use the navigation bar at the bottom of the screen to move from one question to the next. Click on the number to go to that question. You can also click on the forward arrow to go to the next question, or the back arrow to go to the previous question. When you have answered the question, a line will appear under that question in the navigation bar. You can click on Review if you want to look at the question again later. The question number will be shown as a circle. You can review and change your answers at any time until the end of the test. Click on the yellow arrow if you want to make the navigation bar smaller. You can use the scroll bar to see all the questions. In each of the tests, you can change the screen settings. To do this, click on the Settings tab at the top of the screen. You can change the size and colour of the text. In each of the tests, there is a Help tab. If you click on the Help tab, this will give you information about the task you are currently doing. If you click on Test Help, you will see information about how the test works. If you wish, you can also highlight sections of text. If you need to leave the test room for a few minutes, you can hide your screen by clicking on the Hide tab. When you return to the test room, click on the Resume Test button. That is the end of the introduction tutorial for computer-delivered IELTS. Check out the IDP IELTS YouTube channel for tutorial videos for listening, reading and writing. For the listening test, you can change the volume by using the volume bar in the top right at any time during the test. For each part of the listening test, you will hear the recording once only. Some parts of the test have more than one type of question. Each type of question has its own instructions. In the listening test, listen carefully for the part number and question numbers to make sure you are looking at the right screen. For some questions, you need to write your answer in the gap. For some questions, you need to choose which diagram label, A, B, C, etc., is correct for which item listed in the table. For each question, click on the correct space in the table. For some questions, you need to click on an answer and move it into the gap. If you want to change an answer, move another answer into the gap. If you want to leave the question unanswered, move the question back. And for some questions, you need to move an answer into a gap on a diagram. At the end of the listening test, you will have 2 minutes to check all of your answers. The tests will automatically stop when the time finishes. In the reading test, the text appears on the left and the questions on the right. To see all the text and the questions, you'll need to use both scroll bars. For some questions, you need to choose an answer. If you want to change your answer, click on a new answer. If you want to leave a question unanswered, click on the answer again. To look at the next question, just click on the question itself. For some questions, you need to choose more than one answer. If you want to change any of your answers, click on the answer you want to change and then click on your new answer. If you want to leave any of the questions unanswered, click on the answer again. For some questions in the reading test, you need to choose which paragraph or section contains the information listed in the table. Remember to scroll to read all the text. For each question, click on the correct space in the table. If you want to change an answer, click on your new answer. If you want to leave the question unanswered, click on the answer again. For some questions in the reading test, You need to click on a heading for a paragraph or section and move it into the gap. If you want to change your answer, move another heading into the gap. If you want to leave the question unanswered, move the heading back. And for some questions, you need to write your answer on a gap in a diagram. If you wish, you can also highlight sections of text. To do this, left-click and drag your cursor over the section of text or question you wish to highlight. Then right-click and select the highlight option. To remove highlighting from the text, right-click on the highlighted area and select Clear. If you wish to remove all highlighting from the screen, right-click on a highlighted area and select Clear All. You can also make notes on a section of text. To do this, left-click and drag the cursor over the section of text or question you want to make notes about. Then right-click and select the Notes option. Your chosen section of text will be highlighted and a yellow notepad will appear. You can write your notes on this. Click on the cross in the notepad to hide your notes. To see your notes again, click on the highlighted section of text. If you want to see which areas of highlighted text have notes, move the cursor slowly over each area of highlighted text. If a small orange box appears, it means that the highlighted text contains notes. To remove notes from text or questions, right-click on the highlighted area and select Clear. There are two parts to the writing test, Part 1 and Part 2. You can answer the parts in either order. You write your answer in the space on the right of the screen. Your answers are saved automatically. You do not need to press Enter on your keyboard. For the reading and writing tests, the clock will turn red and flash when you have 10 and 5 minutes left.